Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the cookout. It's your boy, TheeAlexMac. We got my man, DapperDom.
What up?
Hey, you see us today. We came in at all black. We came with the sunglasses. We giving you a different energy today at the cookout, man.
Yeah.
Hey, in the middle, we got an entrepreneur. We got a philanthropist. We got a faculty member at the University of Arkansas, where his research spans Black geographies across America. We have a founder and owner, a visionary that focuses on film, media, and events all around preserving Black culture through education, through creativity, and through social justice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the cookout, Dr. Airic Hughes. Let's clap it up. Hey, we appreciate you coming through to the cookout today, man. Hey, you know, we had to come through and show a little bit of Black power today. Hey, today the revolution is being televised right here through YouTube, in your ears, Spotify, Apple, iHeart, wherever you find your podcast. You're going to hear it today. Now let's take care of some business.
Hey, y'all already know, man. Go hit that like, share, subscribe button. Also, too, man, turn on them notifications, man. And like my guy said, whether you watch us on YouTube, listening to us on Apple or Spotify, man, we appreciate you accepting our invitation to the cookout, man. And before we just dive into this thing, man, like, I don't think we give each other flowers enough while we on this side of the dirt, man. So like this guy next to me,
come on,
I've been knowing 20 years,
let's
man.
Do it.
And just to see the maturation from us being at the parties at the Armory, at the skating rink, Dixon Street Theater, man, doing the Frankie, stanky leg, into now he's a father, a husband, you know what I'm saying, a business owner, you know what I mean, somebody who's giving so much back to the Black community. I wanted to give him his flowers today, man, and I appreciate like the growth I've seen, man, over the last 20 years, man. So
that's how we do it at the cookout, man.
Just wanted to go ahead and give him his flowers, man. And so, like, if this is your first time tuning into the show, man, first segment of our show is called Chop It Up, and we really, man, just talk about whatever we want. We could just catch up. We could be talking about current events, but today, before I give Dr. Hughes the floor, man, to kind of talk about where he grew up, what made him choose the U of A, and then like the education path that he took, I'm gonna kick it over to my co-host, kind of ask him like, what does Black preservation mean to you, man?
Man, Black preservation.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's loaded, but to me, I think it's two things. Black preservation is in the DNA of Invitation to the Cookout.
Okay.
That's what we about. We talk about food. Yeah. We talk about health. We talk about culture, all from a Black perspective. Yeah. You know, we've had conversations and we talked about, you know, I think about the media. Yeah. And, you know, I ain't here to try to throw no pity party or be a victim, but not often enough does it portray us as educated. We got a doctor right here. Yeah. You know, we got a lot of degrees. You know, people talk about, you know, that photo where they put all the money to their ears. In this ear, we got degrees. Yes. We sit on stacks of degrees in here, man. And we family men. You know what I'm saying? Sure. We men, we not out there what media is portraying Black men to be. Okay. And like I've said before, we do exist, but it's about how do we create those avenues, those venues to shine a light on something like this, to say, hey, this is what Black men is doing. This is what, whether you want to call it Black excellence, Black, you know, preservation, you want to call it Black power, that's what we doing right here. And so I think it's about telling these stories and passing it down. Yeah. Because we've talked about it before. You know, we got kids. I came home one day and it's like, it hit me, man, they don't teach Black history anymore. Yeah. So we got to take it, mobilize it ourselves, and we got to be through these avenues that we have, through what he has a visionary, we got to be the people that's preserving the culture through storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it to me.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think it's about honoring our ancestors, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But then also too, like through Visionary, like enlightening the youth on Black excellence and like our contributions to society, not only from the past, but like what we doing now. And then also too, like how do we continue to move that needle forward to make a difference for our kids in the future?
Because everything we doing, it's about education, man.
For sure.
We giving a platform where we trying to educate. We've talked about finance, mental health, food. Like these are things that we trying to give light on that, you know, but no shade to the athletes. We talked about this before. We love sports. But we trying to give our people, our youngins that's coming up, we trying to give them a lens outside of entertainment and sports.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, with that, man, tell us about, man, where you grew up. What made you decide on the U of A and then the major stuff that you took, man? So yeah.
First of all, I just want to thank God for the opportunity, and I want to thank y'all for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
So here at the cookout, man. So again, let's clap.
Absolutely.
So we had the cookout. We back in the back corner. It smelled like reefer back here. About the salted crack. This that part of the cookout. Shopping those on the table. Spades, flipping people topics. You know, all that. That part of the cookout.
And you know we done made it to Unk status too, by the way.
Hey, it's crazy because I was watching this thing and I told and it was a little video and it had all the ages. I told my son, I was like, man, I'm at Unk status now. He's like, damn, what's that? So we the Unks at the cookout, man.
Yeah, you already know. We made in the grill. We already, but that's the flavor. So I definitely appreciate just what y'all doing and the invitation to have the space to chill and to talk about things that matter to us, because that's really what we do at the cookout. And you know, that's really what we do at Visionary. You know, Black culture preservation to me just simply means making space for Blackness. You know, we make space for it. Well, and that's what y'all doing. So with that, man, kind of my journey to the U of A is I don't even know if I just say it like this. My journey to the U of A was ordained. I thought I was an athlete at one point in my life. So, you know, I was straight at basketball, but really I didn't have as much confidence in my mind. I had more confidence in my body than my mind. You know, and that's really the kind of the trap that you're talking about there. A lot of our young people in our community fall into is they discredit the power of their mind, the power of their spirit. And so, you know, nonetheless, I was straight at basketball and got a college scholarship to come up here to a JUCO. Played a year at JUCO basketball. I realized that it's a job.
For sure.
They don't tell you that, boy.
For sure.
Shoot.
And with any job, you got to be real about if that's the job you want. You know? And so it didn't really take much for me to really figure out that I needed to explore more. I needed to learn more. I needed to learn more. I needed to learn more. You know what I mean? And so from there, I enrolled at the U of A just because I'm from Arkansas. I was born in Jacksonville. I grew up in Little Rock, grew up out 12th Street. Anybody in Little Rock know where Ugly Mike's is. I grew up on Jefferson right up from that. And where I grew up is literally right next to interstate, right next to the freeway. And so I grew up in one of them places, right? And I knew that the U of A had a good reputation academically. I had a lot of friends from, you know, Central Arkansas that went up to the school. And so, you know, it was, and the junior college that I played with was here in Northwest Arkansas. So I was actually almost already familiar with the area a little bit. And, you know, I went over to the school, started doing my thing, actually walked onto the basketball team, and decided finally that was when I was divorcing myself from that identity. When I was, when I was going to become whoever else I'm meant to be outside of that. You know what I mean? And so, you know, from there, it's just a journey of learning. And I really would have failed out of college, honestly, after my first semester, what bro was talking about, what Key was talking about. So, but nonetheless, I had a English professor, and he gave me some confidence because of my writing. And truthfully, my writing probably got me out the hood more so than any athletic ability.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? My ability to express, and that's always been something that I've enjoyed exploring and learning more about, is my ability to express, that mastering my ability to express, right? And so Professor put me on to learning more about African American studies and the courses in that department, and I got connected with another professor in that program, and he really mentored me, Dr. Calvin White. He's at the Arkansas State University right now, but he became a huge mentor for my journey in history and learning about what history is and what historians do, because he was the first Black historian that I had in my education process.
Yeah.
I had a Black historian at the school I went to growing up, because I went to school in North Little Rock at elementary, and we had Black teachers. So I had a teacher, Mr. Hegwood, that really drilled down some foundational things about, you know, our history and that type of stuff. But once I got to college and started applying the research aspects into the learning process, it became a passion for me. You know, it became something that I felt, you know, kind of the way you said, the way you do this to honor the ancestors, right? You learn more about the stories, you learn more about what happened, and then you learn more about not just the stories, but how the stories have been told and who has had the power to tell the stories.
Yeah,
Then you start learning.
We talking now.
Then you start learning about the understandings of how systems work, how power works, and really the nature of my research focuses on the impact of public policy in America. And throughout my graduate academic process, I've been building towards those things that have really just been foundational to who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And I can explain that. So I got a master's doing a project on the first Black filmmaker of the first major Black filmmaker of the 20th century, Oscar Micheaux. I wrote a project about him, and he was a homesteader way back in the 20th century. He would go out into the country and he would try to set up a farm back when people were able to access land from the government to go out west and start to homestead. And so he did that and started writing stories about his journey. And then he turned his stories, he would sell his stories, he would go around and hustle his stories. So he was an entrepreneur and he was a storyteller. But then he started taking these stories and turning them into films. And he became one of the first major filmmakers in American history. A lot of people know about this film, Birth of a Nation, that, you know, depicts African Americans coming out after the Civil War in these negative ways. And so Oscar Micheaux actually made a film in response to that called Within Our Gates. You can go to Library of Congress now and look that up. But it's a film that shows the realities that Black people were facing during that time. The lynchings. It showed Black families getting lynched. It showed Black preachers swindling communities. It showed all the same problems that people, you know what I mean, in some way or another deal with today. And so he, you know, was a pioneering force in film. He was one of the first filmmakers to go from producing silent film to talking films. So he was, you know, an innovator. But anyway, I wrote a master's about him, and that came back at another point in my life as a project or a program that we do in my company, Visionari. But I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But it's just that history, that connection to the history that continues to push my journey forward. And so once I got to the doctoral level, the thing that I learned really from Dr. White is to do something that mattered to you. Do something that really mattered to you. You know what I mean? Because it's hard. Whatever you're going to be doing, start a podcast, you start a business, you start a career, whatever, it's going to be hard. So you might as well do what matters to them. You get a PhD, whatever, do what matters to you. And so what mattered to me was the reality that the house that I grew up in was right next to an interstate, and on this side of it, my hood and community looked one way, and when you get on this side of it, it can look completely different.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And that dual experience that I had as a child is really what opened my eyes to that reality. And when it came to figuring out what I wanted to do and what meant something to me, that was naturally, you know, my house grew up right there next to the freeway. So in exploring that and researching that, man, that really kind of shaped my journey coming here to the U of A, going into history, and really starting to understand how our experiences as a community have been defined for us throughout American history. They've been shaped for us, and it's a question of when and how do we begin to shape that journey going forward.
Yeah. Now, before we get too deep into it, because like that's what I wanted to kind of say. We're part of our what we call like what's on the grill. So you know what I'm saying, like that's our main meat and potatoes of the show. We kind of talk about things, man. And so like what I want to talk about on the grill today is one, your company Visionari. Like how did it come about? Like when did you first get that vision? Also two, you touched on like the media likes to tell our story. And so is that why you thought it was important for you to start your own company that talks about our stories and tell it in our way? Also too, with you traveling and covering all these stories and doing all this research, talking about things that like have personally touched you, or if there's things in our history that's relative to that we don't even know about. But let's just start with Visionari. Like how did that come about, man? By the way, I do got a Visionari hat on today.
Yeah, we're gonna tell you where to get that merch at later, man.
We will.
So appreciate that, man. It's you know, that's just a part of the flavor. This is a part of the flavor, right? But so Visionari came about as I started my doctoral journey. One of the things that I realized is that I didn't want to just be no professor. You know, I grew up watching Indiana Jones movies, man. But he was crazy. She fly out and be whooping motherfuckers. Shooting fucking and come back and he doing flowers and stuff. Yeah, that was just crazy to me. And I never really realized how much that was influencing me until I started teaching. Once I started my doctoral journey and started teaching, you know, that became a big part of the fulfillment that I received. But I also understood that I didn't have no ownership of nothing on that space. I don't own nothing in that space. And at the end of the day, as I was starting my doctoral journey, I had recently got married, and my wife and I had a daughter. And our daughter was born very premature, at 25 weeks. And she was 1 pound, 11 ounces. Like I can remember her being in the palm of my hand. And so her name was Ariel. And she spelled her name A-I-R-I-E-L. I spelled my name A-I-R-I-C. And when Ariel first came, we spent 9 months down at Arkansas Children's Hospital in the NICU. And you spend a lot of time in the NICU, you see a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you grew up in the situations where we grew up, you see a lot. It's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sitting in that space and even just being a first time father, you understand, hey, I gotta figure something out.
Yeah.
What is this gonna be for her?
Yeah.
And for whoever comes after her in my family. You know what I mean? And so Ariel made a miraculous recovery. She got out of the hospital, came home, was growing. And so when she was in the hospital, that's really when I developed Visionari. And we spell it the way we spell it in honor of her name. Vision, A-I-R-I-E-L.
Love it.
And so she is with us in this because she inspired it from the beginning, right? And so, anyway, Ariel made outstanding recovery. She went to school one day. She was 3 years old, 3.5, and she suddenly passed away at school. And so, you know, my wife and I had another son at that time. His name is Zion. And, you know, that's a devastating situation for the family. You know what I mean? That's something that's very difficult. And so at that point, you know, the amount of fearlessness that I had, triple. Because, you know, just being real, I talk to folks about this all the time. There's a scale of blackness, and we measure this blackness based on can we cuss in this podcast?
Oh yeah, you got it. Hit the cookout.
So you got this scale of blackness based on your level of give a fuck.
Yeah.
And the less you give a fuck, the more people say, "Oh, that's what."
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So and going through that experience and already having that history foundation and already being on that journey and already starting Visionary.
Yeah.
When Ariel transitioned, the only question at that point was, "What you gonna do?"
Yeah.
I wrote it on a big board. It still had that big board. I have a big whiteboard that is still to this day. The very next morning after I received the word that God gave me about why this happened and what it meant, I had peace with the situation and I understood the task and the time. And from there, it's the question of what you gonna do is constantly being answered every day.
And so one thing that I would ask is, and because we got a lot of stuff going on in this conversation. Talk to me, especially with us being 3 black men here. Talk to me about the balance between, you know, authenticity as a black man and the way that you carry yourself throughout the careers and the things that you're doing. And I ask that just because, you know, if you look at us in the way that the media portrays, no one will be like, okay, he's a doctor, he's a scientist, he's a life coach, he's like they would not see these things based off of the way that we're presenting ourselves. But some of that comes from, I would argue, some of that comes from black culture. This that you see right here is black culture. So how do you think about that in your mind in terms of the authenticity between who you are versus what, you know, the media and maybe the outside is trying to fit us in as a box?
Or even as a professor, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you don't look like it.
Yeah, come on.
I'm saying that I took. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So like,
I don't like what I took either.
So like, how did you? I mean, like that confidence. You know what I'm saying? Because I've talked before in other podcasts. Like sometimes, man, when I used to go into meetings and stuff like that, I felt like I didn't belong. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you know there's not professors that look like you, like, did you ever have any imposter syndrome? But like, how did you decide, like, this how I'm gonna show up regardless of how you feel?
It's real.
I respect people and the things that they deal with, because everybody deal with stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, from my own perspective, the amount of fearlessness that I had, from losing a child, the amount of faith that I had that grew in that process made it to where the question for me is, who else can I be?
Oh, man. That's bro.
All right.
Yeah.
Come on. We walking in it now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And at the same time, that's why I said I respect people's journey and I respect what people deal with, because, you know, it's real.
Yeah.
You know, it is a difficult challenge in transitioning and being in environments where you have, if you're not familiar with being around white folks,
Yeah.
that's a big transition. Because if you grew up in the communities where a lot of us grew up, which most of us did by design, then you probably hadn't had as much exposure with these types of environments or individuals. And so it is a challenge, a major challenge. It always has been. And that can impact how you see yourself, the confidence that people have and all that.
Do you feel like we try to make them feel more comfortable being around us versus like us just being ourselves and they got to get used to us?
There's a lot of that because honestly, you aren't even allowed into those spaces unless you are willing to make them comfortable on some level. And the question is how do you navigate those spaces, and what are your outlets? What are the spaces where you can be reinforced and be refurbished in your authenticity, where you can be in those spaces where you can be yourself and understand who you really are, because that's step one. You know what I mean? And that's why I said it's that way. Who else can I be? If you know who you are, then there ain't really no one else that you can be. If you try to be somebody else, you off base right there.
For sure.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I have some thoughts in that because a couple of weeks ago I watched the Shooting Guards documentary about Gilbert Arenas and Craig and the issues that they ended up having. And one of the things that they talked about in that story was Crittenden's kind of back and forth with trying to feel like he was being true to where he came from versus maybe living a life that was a little bit different because he had made it. Like, what is your thoughts on, the term, sellout within the Black community and specifically around Black men? Because you've talked about a lot of where we come from. And then there's a point in life where if we're fortunate enough and blessed enough, we can get to the other side of that. But I think a lot of times in terms of, hey, I gotta keep it real to the partners that came up with me and all of that. Like we're trying to be authentic to where we came from. And sometimes it's leading us to make maybe decisions we shouldn't be making anymore as unks. So like, how do you think about that fine line between being, again, authentic to your roots and everything that made you versus like, hey man, this man is selling out for X, Y, and Z?
Well, I was gonna say before we started our podcast, the titles and all that kind of stuff really don't mean anything to me, because at the end of the day, if I get pulled over, I'm just who I am in this car, especially if it's a white dude. You know what I mean? That's the reality. And so for me, I'm on this kind of same slant as maybe what Jaylen Brown recently expressed about not being an elitist. I don't consider myself an elitist, and I stand against Black elitism. I understand that we need representations of excellence, but we need real representations. Period. Of who we are and what we do.
Respect.
The whole spectrum.
And so from that standpoint, you be who you are, and the whole thing of life from my standpoint is to grow. Because you shouldn't be making the same decisions at this stage in life that you were at a previous stage in life and expecting different results. If you are making the same decision, you should expect the same results, right? And if you ain't invested in growth, and then growing yourself, growing your not just knowledge, but growing your spirit, growing in your purpose, understanding who you are and what you put here to do, then those other things become stuff you put to the side. You know what I mean? Those other things become stuff that you got to ask yourself, do it really matter? Is it really what you supposed to be doing?
That purpose piece.
And I think too, man, in our community, we get caught up when you talk about elitism, is we feel like there only can be one. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we get here and it's like, man, we can't bring too many people. Like they barely let me in.
That's real.
When it's like I'm supposed to get here and then come back and get my people. And I think like that's why it's so big for companies like yours to tell these stories of Black excellence. Like, okay, this is my lineage. Like this is where I come from. So like I have that spirit that my ancestors have. Like, I didn't know it until I saw this story. So can you give us some things like from a community perspective, from a just, I guess, like film or just events that your company do, man, to kind of educate us on where we come from and like Black culture?
Yeah. So one of the first events that Visionari did was on the U of A campus. We had this event called Black History 101 where we brought this individual who has a mobile museum of Black artifacts in, and we had the event. It was one of our first events that we did for Black History Month, and that really set a tone for us as far as the types of spaces that we would make and what would happen and how we would educate, because when we teach our history, when we teach who we are, it has a different dynamic. And the types of things that you learn even in my classes on campus, you don't get those same perspectives, because that's what history is. It's what we choose to remember about the past, and it's who is choosing to remember, right? And so the types of events that we do and the types of spaces that we make are curated on being the same as the cookout, a welcoming space where you can learn and vibe and grow, you know. And, you know, we do a lot of different literacy focused events on campus and in the community. We host a Black book club on campus called The Footnotes, where we bring in authors and they talk about their books and their projects with the community and with the campus. We do financial literacy events where we go in and bring speakers and people into the community to talk about the different aspects of education around finance and those things. And our goal is to make the space and bring the individuals in to facilitate education. You know what I mean? I have a specific lane, and more importantly, this is a we thing. The essence of what Blackness represents is communal. For sure. It's a we thing, right? There's a different perspective outside of these types of communities who don't have a communal aspect. There's more of an individualistic, or more of a capitalistic, or more of a comparison-based society, because you try to figure out you versus somebody else. Right. But when it's a we thing, we are doing everything with each other. So that's kind of the way in which we construct our learning spaces, is the way in which we construct our social justice spaces. And it's the way in which we approach making films and telling stories, because that's the one of the major ways in which we not only generate revenue, but create opportunities for community to learn how to do these things, to learn media arts, to learn filmmaking, to learn writing, to learn the things that we're going out and researching that they're telling us they're needing. That's one of the main things for us as visionaries, making sure that the types of programs that we do are based on what the community is telling us they want and they need. You know, again, I don't believe in coming into communities and telling them what they need, because who right. At the end of the day, if we're working together to generate opportunity and generate success, then it's a better path forward, you know.
See, and I have my thoughts. What do you feel like, or when do you feel like, as a Black community, we've gotten away from that communal type of, like, is there a point in time in history that you can say are some factors to where it feels like we kind of got away from that, hey, we all gonna look out for each other, we're gonna shop with each other, we're gonna support each other, to kind of where things are at now?
I mean, the Black community ain't never been monolithic. It ain't on everybody to get along with everybody. We are people, we are grown. No matter what, for sure, ethnicity, whatever. They don't. All white folks don't get along. You know, that's one of these myths that get caught up into our community, that we all need to be together and be unified. What I can speak to in that regard is our approach. Our approach is strategic alignment. Okay. If individuals or organizations or communities have a alignment with Black culture preservation, we can rock with it.
Okay.
You know, and that's no disrespect to any other approach. You know, there's a million ways to try to improve the situation, and there's a greater need than all the solutions that any of us got. We're still sitting right. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So at the end of the day, you know, you got to be able to collaborate where opportunities exist, and that's built on the communal respect. And as long as we can keep that, that's really where, if you ask where things have, I guess, gotten lost, is there's more of a focus on self. It's more of a me thing than a we thing. And that's a choice that we all have, because as you succeed, you have an opportunity to help others succeed. And the question is, what you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? How are you going to use your opportunities to help somebody else? And more importantly, understanding that that's probably why you got put in position. If you can know what your purpose is and the path that your spirit should be led on, then you'll start to see those things a lot clearly. You know, you'll know, oh, yeah, that's why Dr. White became such and such, because he was supposed to help me do this and this. And so if I'm Dr. such and such, man, I need to be looking at helping. You know.
I think I posted maybe something about a month ago that said, man, like, your purpose is also tied to somebody else's purpose. So like, if you don't fulfill your purpose, you might be hindering.
You remember the Celtics?
Yeah.
You seen that Celtic City? The new documentary on HBO?
I haven't seen it yet, but I know what you're talking about.
The episode where Doc Rivers and them, you know, when they won in 2008, and Butu, I can't be who I am without you being who you are.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You know? That's pretty bro. You know?
Man, I love that.
Is there any story that's like resonated with you personally that Visionari has shot or covered or you researched that kind of touched you differently than other stories have?
Yeah, I'm working on a few different projects, and it's crazy because we've done everything that we've done, and most of what we've done, the public really doesn't see. Our debut film should be, it's in post-production now, and it should be releasing sometime in the latter half of the year, going into 2026. And it's telling the story of the 6 women that kneel for the national anthem on the Razorback basketball team.
Okay.
You remember when that happened? And during the first Trump presidency, right after Colin Kaepernick did what he did, man, those women made a choice of what to do with their opportunity, with their platform, and they committed themselves. And so, you know, that's one of the stories that we're excited about telling. There's another story that I'm working on with the artist out of Pine Bluff named Kenny Reams. Kenny is a political prisoner in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. He's been the longest serving person in the Arkansas Department of Corrections. He was the youngest person sentenced to execution in the state of Arkansas history. He was after being sentenced to execution for a murder that he didn't commit, he was on death row, and while he was on death row, he became a world-renowned artist, and he had art that was made all over, that was shown all over the world in galleries and exhibits. He's done talks in colleges and universities all around the world, and he was known all around the country, but there wasn't a lot of information around about him in the state of Arkansas. And really the situation around his legal case was effectively silenced. You know, the story itself wasn't being promoted. And so when Kenny and I came together by divine ordination, we started doing things to help elevate his story and profile within the state and build different policymakers and officials to come and be aware and take interest, different artist communities to be aware and take interest. And so now Kenneth is no longer on death row, which is a crazy story in and of itself on how he survived on death row. I'll tell you how he survived on death row that long, living in solitary confinement. Death row is solitary confinement. So the art that he makes, it all speaks to American history, capital punishment, criminal justice, Black history, the art that he speaks, because he's a vocal artist, he's a poet, he's also a rapper. But the stories that he tells, they're all focused in American history and particularly the Black stories that come from American history. Yeah. And so another project that we're working on is another film project that we're working on outside of the women from the Arkansas Razorback basketball team is telling my friend Kenny's story. Okay. There's a friend that's been made about a film that's been made about his life already called Free Men. Yeah. You can find it online now. It's made by a Swedish filmmaker. But we're telling the story of the work that we've been doing to get him out of prison. Yeah. Okay. And so, right now, we're still believing that Kenny is going to be released from prison. Yeah. Because he's no longer on death row. He's in general population. And so there's a lot of different circumstances that's keeping him incarcerated, but we're in belief that once he gets free, we'll be able to tell this story on how we helped believe his way out. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. You touched on earlier, man, like you came up to Northwest Arkansas, like just thinking like I'm an athlete. You know what I mean? And then like you quickly like, hey, I need to figure out like who else am I? You know what I'm saying? What part do you think that like education plays in keeping us like, or the lack of education in our community keeps us trapped?
It definitely is. It can be education, it can be lack of education, but it probably is what Dr. Carter Woodson called it in 1933. Dr. Carter Woodson is the person that is responsible for us celebrating Black History Month every year. Started as Negro History Week. Yes. He wrote this book called The Miseducation of the Negro. Yep. And in that book, he talks a lot about where the values that we prioritize as a community lie and some of the issues that even at that time were being dealt with. Same as Oscar Michaud when he was talking about the swindling pastor in this film and all that kind of stuff. But just the where the focus and the values lie is an old conversation. I would say, that was one of the major things that opened my eyes is reading Dr. Woodson's Miseducation when it came to understanding why there's this knowledge gap in our communities, right? And a lot of the reason is because of there is racism, there are systemic barriers. All of that is absolutely 100% correct. And one of the biggest barriers that Dr. Woodson highlights is self. Yeah. Is not being willing to put yourself in position to learn whatever it is you need to learn to be who you're supposed to be. Yeah. And whatever that is, he focused on really highlighting the negative impact that selfish perspective had on our communities and continues to have. You can hear it. You can hear it. It's a situation where if you're listening, you can easily hear where those types of values lie when it's a me thing. Yeah. When it's when people always focus on I, when you can hear it in how they speak, right? And so that me thing wants to be important. It wants to lead organizations. It wants to be it wants to be to make history. It wants to be that. It wants to receive that gratification of it, and at the end of the day, if everybody leading, then where is we going? Yeah. What are we actually doing? You know what I mean? And who's actually doing things? So Dr. Woodson called it the need for service versus leadership, finding a way that you can, a task that you can apply your hands to, and a way that you can provide service to the communities. And there's great dignity in that. There's great value in that. There's great future in that because there's so much help that we need, but also that opens you to be entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. If you think about any other community, you can go and get, I'm going to just say this. You should be able to go and get your nails done in a Black salon the same way you can in a salon where there's all Koreans.
Yeah.
Or whoever else. You should be able to do those things, but there's not space made for that because that's hard work.
Yeah.
That's where that selfish perspective shies away. But if it's a we thing, then you'll be willing to do what it takes to provide the service, and you can benefit from that. You know, that's why I say we're not an elitist organization. We don't believe in extracting things from our community for our own personal gain. That's garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We work with our communities for the purpose of Black culture preservation, you know, and it's because it's a we thing for real. You know, it can't be a me thing. It's a last long.
Yeah.
Cause don't nobody care about you, bro.
Yeah.
So they care about us.
Yeah.
They don't, what Kendrick Lamar say, you know, say they not like you.
They not like us. 100%, man.
Real, man.
Yeah. Now, also too, man, talk about, look, you got it. Brick and mortar, man. Talk about like the first, tell them about Visionari and Flag. Yeah.
Where do we call it the cookout now? Come on, man.
Nah, for sure. And that's why I said, you know, it's kind of crazy it's a blessing. It's not crazy. It's what God want me to be doing. And it's a blessing to have gotten this far and still ain't put no film out yet as a filmmaker. As a historian, I just don't have my book out yet. But all these things are a part of who I am and will be. And the manifestation of this part of it even gives me that much more confidence, right? So we have a studio in downtown Fayetteville on the Fayetteville Square. It's the first Black-owned business with a storefront on the Fayetteville Square. And Visionari Studios is the space for Black culture preservation. It's our art gallery studio. We have artists that display their work throughout the space. It's a full production studio where photographers work, where freelancers work, where editors come and work, where people who shoot podcasts come and work, where people gather to host events, to start churches, to have date nights and supper clubs, to just be comfortable in this Black space that exists on the Fayetteville Square. And, you know, one of the blessings about, we've been in this space a little over a year now, one of the blessings about this journey is that it's our second studio space, and what we have now came from our experiences in our first one, and understanding how to grow it, how to scale it, and even coming to the cookout and being here, you know, and understanding that, hey, brother, you ain't far from where you need to be. You know what I mean? Even with I don't think we have disadvantages. I think the reality of our situations coming from the communities that a lot of us come from is just about how hard you want it and how bad you want it. That's one of the things that stayed with me from my athletic career. Is a chaplain that I had in one of the meetings that we were having as a team for my JUCO basketball team. The chaplain said, the degree of your desire is determined by the intensity of your pursuit. You know, how bad do you really want that? You know, and so from there, it becomes understanding what you really want, what you really want to do. And we want to make space for Blackness. We want to continue to use this space with our community, and we want to continue to scale and replicate these spaces and implement them in our communities where they're even more accessible to our communities. Because, you know, that's one of the things about being in this region is that things grow fast here, and it's still a cultural divide. It's still not as much space for our communities to feel comfortable here. And so that space is important for us, and continuing to make more of those spaces is important to us.
Yeah. Man, we appreciate you dropping this knowledge, man, with the people. Hopefully y'all learned something. Last segment of our show, man. It's called to go plate. You know what I'm saying? We like to say at the cookout, but it's only you more than food on your plate, man. So like, what's
oil?
Yeah, what's the 2, 3, 5? Yeah.
So Walmart bag.
Yeah. So like one like what are you putting on your to go plate? Like just from like you at the cookout, man, you taking back home with you, but also too, what is something, man, from today's episode that you want our listeners to leave with too?
Again, I definitely appreciate the invitation. I'm leaving with the knowledge that every step is another affirmation instead of, and doing what I need to do.
Fair.
And being here and having the opportunity to share, being in a position to be able to help educate, to be able to provide service to our communities, and to be able to be an example and be yourself. That's something that I definitely appreciate the value in and the encouragement from being around y'all. It's definitely I take that with me, and what I want the audience to take away is I would say know who you are, be who you are.
What you got?
For me, it's simple, man. God has given each one of us a unique talent, a unique purpose.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you look yourself in the mirror, ask yourself, am I using that? Yeah. Am I living up to that purpose? Am I living up to that talent? And sometimes it puts you in uncomfortable places because you're scared of fear. You're scared of, hey, am I going to make it? Am I going to be popular? Yeah. But when we came into the studio, one thing that remains in my head, you said, keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah.
And the main thing for me is helping my people through education of food, of health, of culture.
Yeah.
That's part of my purpose. Yeah. And so when I leave this earth, people can say, hey, that man gave his talents to help advance his community. Yeah. So that's what I take with it, man.
Man, what I took away was, one, man, leadership doesn't look like giving direction. It's service. You know what I'm saying? Like, how am I serving the people around me? You know what I'm saying? How am I stewarding my gifts, my talents? And then also, too, man, understanding who you are. You know what I mean? Like, I think, like, that's the thing, like, who else can I be besides myself? So, like, asking yourself, like, who are you? Like you said, what are those gifts and talents that God has given me, and am I using them to serve others around me?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's real. Hey, before we get out of here, though, man, tell the people where they can find you. Yeah. We want to make sure they can find Visionari. Yeah. Tap in with you.
I'll be hiding.
Where can they find us? No. We trying to get you. Hey, we trying to put the light on here at the cookout, man. What you got? Some social media? What we got, man? Website? What we got?
I can give you where we at, man. So come check us out. First of all, if you in Northwest Arkansas, come check out Visionari Studios, 9 South Block Avenue, Suite 201. It's elevated. You're going to have a great experience no matter what. You can find us online on social media at Visionari, Visionari. And if you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to our website, www.truevisionary.com. It's TRU, like the no limit true. You can check us out on our website. We definitely would love to engage with you. Reach out to us, man. Everything we do really comes from requests by our community, and so that's the lifeblood. That's the strategic alignment that I mentioned. And we would love to continue to work with our communities as we move throughout the state. One of our focus areas is Arkansas because it's where we are and it's where we're from, and we know what we need here, and we're working on that. And so we would love to engage with people who are also working in this space.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah, well, man, we appreciate y'all accepting our invitation to the cookout. The next time, man, we out.
See ya.
Yeah.